Today's gospel reveals a journey of conversion to us. There's a pattern of this blind man from Bethsaida's life, and the pattern of conversion that goes on, a life of faith. As well, in a way, it's similar to the experience in confession, too, generally speaking, and I'll try and show that. So it starts off by this blind man who was a beggar in Bethsaida, who had no way to encounter Jesus. So what happened was his friends took him to encounter Jesus. He had no way of finding Jesus or getting there on his own. So he relied on the generosity and kindness of friends or passersby to help him to find and encounter Jesus. So they led him to Christ. And that parallels our walk of faith, because often it's through another person that we encounter the Lord, that we are led to encounter Jesus. So for most of us, that's maybe our parents, our godparents, our grandparents will lead us to baptism and then take us to church as young children, as infants. So we rely on other people to lead us to encounter Jesus. Others who maybe encounter the Lord later in life, again, they rely on the witness of you and I to be good witnesses of the faith, of the gospel, of the love of Christ, and that attracts them, that piques their curiosity, so much so that they say, "Tell me, where did you get this? Or why are you so kind to me? Or what moves you to care about others? I haven't seen that in another person yet in my life. Maybe they didn't experience that same type of tender love or kindness or generosity from their own family upbringing, and then they encounter a friend or someone that shows them that, and they say, where does this come from?" And ultimately they lead them back to the source of all love, which is Christ himself. Then the second element of the story is Jesus leads him out of the village. It's very interesting when you think about it. These people lead this blind beggar to Jesus, and then what does he do? He leads him out of the village. You may wonder, why does he do this, or what significance can this have? Well, Bethsaida is well known as a place that rejected Jesus, a place that did not welcome him, did not accept him as the Messiah, as the great teacher that he was. The miracles that he did, they didn't change hearts. They just sort of thought that he was like a teacher or a showman or something like this, but they didn't accept him or embrace him. So Bethsaida was a place of naysayers, very critical of Jesus, again, they didn't welcome the message of the gospel. And Jesus even says, if there were signs like this, like they were in Bethsaida, that people would have responded positively. But for Bethsaida, who has rejected me and not embraced me, no good will come from there, essentially paraphrased. So this Bethsaida, you need to remember, is a place that does not welcome Christ, full of naysayers. So that moment where Jesus took the man and led him out of the village, before doing anything for him, in a way, it represents how we need the Lord to take us out of maybe a bad situation that is a toxic environment. Maybe it could even be friends or family that persecute us, even within our own families or friendships, that make fun of our faith or that ridicule us for our devotion or things like that. The Lord leads us away from them because, again, it's a bad, toxic environment, a poisonous friendship, even a poisonous relationship, because it'll stifle our growth, it'll stifle our life of faith if we don't have the support of people around us, if the people closest to us are the ones that are bringing us down. And so often this will happen in a workplace or even amongst neighbors or friends. We will be ridiculed for our faith, and so we are called actually to leave that, to leave those relationships, to leave those toxic environments that do not foster the growth of our faith. Again, if your hand causes you to sin or to wither, cut it off. If your eye leads you to sin, tear it out. So again, the Lord's not asking us to maim ourselves, but rather, if there isn't fruit being born from the tree or from a friendship or something like that, it's only going to be a toxic environment that will bring us down, and we are called to move away from that, So too, again, with Bethsaida being a bad influence, a bad area for this blind man to spend his time after what Jesus will do, he is called to leave that environment. So the same thing happens again, making the connections to confession. if there is, the last phrase in their act of contrition is often to avoid the near occasion of sin, to avoid the near occasion of sin. So if there is a friendship or an environment or a pattern of sin that we've noticed in our own lives that leads us to the same types of sins over and over and over again, Jesus is calling us to leave that bad environment, that environment of the village, that friendship or whatever it may be, if we are to fully grow and to avoid the occasion of sin, because otherwise if that same friend causes us to fall in the same ways over and over again, or to fall into gossip or whatever it may be, or to whatever it may be, then we are called to separate ourselves from that, because our first concern is for our own soul and then the souls of those around us. So Jesus led him out of the village before he worked any healing in his life. And then the third element is Jesus restores his sight. He restores his sight. He prays over him, as well as putting saliva in his eyes so that he may see. And this blind man who could not see now has sight, and his life is dramatically changed. We also notice that, I'm sure you noticed this, it took 2 tries for it to work, so to speak. Not that the Lord couldn't heal his blindness on the first try, but the first time he prayed over him and laid his hands on him, he said, "Can you see anything?" The man looked up and he said, "I can see people, but they look like trees walking." So he was almost there. He was starting to see the light. He was starting to have his sight regained, but it wasn't fully there. It wasn't fully there. And then again, the second time, the Lord laid his hands on his eyes. Again, all of a sudden, he could see everything clearly. See everything clearly. And so again, when it comes to the confession parallel, we often go to confession for the same types of sins over and over again, and so that we shouldn't beat ourselves up about that this is normal. It takes time. It takes time to work through sins. It takes time to remove those near occasions of sin that are in our life, to work through patterns of sin or habitual patterns that we fall into. But also not to be discouraged. The Lord is patient with us. He's compassionate. He's loving. He's forgiving. Very understanding that this takes time. And in terms of our life of faith, we may think, well, how does this parallel the life of faith? Again, after we've invited someone to come to church with us, to pray with us, whatever, we've explained some of the key elements of our faith. Someone who's curious, and then we're walking with them over time to change their lifestyle or change patterns of sin or their past so that they can come fully into communion, into the church. Then sometimes it takes time. They'll come to Mass a couple times with us maybe, or they'll pray with us a couple times or ask us questions over periods of time. And they will start to see, but they will not see everything clearly immediately. They'll be like, oh, this makes sense, but I still have questions about that. Right? And so it's a journey. It's a journey. And so they start to see things, like in this blind person's case, I can see the people, but they look like trees walking. So to you and I, for someone to say that, well, you still can't really see. If you think that there's trees moving, then you don't really get it yet. But that's huge leaps and bounds for this blind person. So sometimes we need to have that patience with other people that maybe we're walking with in the faith. They may come to church at Christmas and Easter, or for weddings and funerals and those types of things. But we still think, well, they don't get it. They don't get it. If they got it, they would come with us on the weekend and maybe even during the week, where they'd want to pray with us or read scripture with us. Hold on. They're still at the halfway point in this blind man's journey where they can see, but not entirely. They see the trees moving and walking. So that's sort of the journey. It takes time for them too. Just like it takes time for all of us. We're still, comparatively speaking, sometimes someone could look at me and say, well, Father, all you can see is the trees walking too. You still don't get elements or vice versa, right? And so we're all on this journey together, and the important thing is that Jesus is walking with us, and his hand is over us, guiding us. He's praying with us and over us, healing us so that we can see clearly. And then the last part is the last phrase. He says, do not even go into the village. Do not even go into the village. And he's telling this man, don't go back. Don't fall back into the same patterns of sin in terms of, again, confession and things like that. Don't go back into the same patterns and let yourself fall, because you've journeyed so far. You've made it so far. Because Bethsaida would have been a bad influence. He would have walked back and people would have harassed him. It's like, wait a minute, were you just faking the blind thing? or something like that? Or who is this Jesus now? What is he doing? And sure enough, they persecuted the Lord for working miracles on the Sabbath. And so persecution was to come if he went back to Bethsaida. They wouldn't have accepted this blind man, nor would they accept Jesus, regardless of the great signs and the great things he was doing. And so again, when it applies to confession or our own life of faith, again, we are called not to go back down the same path or revert back to our past patterns of life. Once we've made that progress, we are called to move forward, and not to return back to those patterns. So today, let us pray that we may receive the healings we need in our life at this time, and continue to journey from blindness of faith or being focused on things that are not of the Lord to that clarity of sight, to see the light that is Christ today and always.